All right, ladies and gentlemen, so let's just go through again. I went through how to add backgrounds to the individual panels. I went through that yesterday, and I posted the video for that. So again, you can use your rectangular select to select an area, and then the magic wand with the intersect option, which is that fourth option there, to sort of just select one part of that rectangle. So you see I've put a unique background here, and I've also put another one here. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and start creating some word bubbles. This is just going to be a review, but again, what you want to do is click on whatever the top layer is of your project. We're going to go down to the bottom here, and we're going to create a new layer. And I'm going to call this layer, word bub 1. At least so it has a title for now. It should be a nice clear layer. And now I'm going to go to my toolbar, and I'm going to go with that rectangle select. I'm going to switch it to the ellipse select. And you should have an idea of what you want to write or how much you want to write. But I'm just going to make myself a random oval. All right. To that oval, I have the basic shape of it. Now I want to add that little tail to it so I know which way it's coming from, to let the viewer know that this is me speaking. So I want a little arrow that goes right there. To create that arrow, I'm going to go to the tool right below the ellipse select, which is called the polygon lasso tool. You see there's a regular lasso, there's a magnetic lasso. We want the polygon lasso tool. I'm going to click that one. Looks like a little puzzle piece, I guess. And what we want to do before we use that is we want to go up to the top here where we have our options for the tool. And you can see the first one is just replace. We want unite. I'm going to click on that option. That way when I make a shape, it will be connected to the shape I've already created. So I'll just click once. And you can see by clicking once, I've created a sort of anchor point. Let me try to zoom in on this. So I've clicked once, and you can see that little line. And when I go over here and click again, I sort of place that line. Here's my third point. I've got a triangle. Now I just want to finish it off. And you see immediately once I finished off that triangle, it became one with the oval I already made. And again, it's important that this is on its own layer. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to white, and unless you want your word bubble to be in a different color. And then I'm going to go to my paint bucket, little bucket tool, and I'm going to go ahead and drop in white color. Right, I want to show you another little trick. We want to press Control and D, the letter D, to get rid of the deselect. And if you want to put a really thin outline around this, we can go to the layer that it's on, this word bubble 1, and what I can do is I can double click on the gray area here, not on the word itself. When I double click on the word, I can change the title or the name of that layer. What I want to do is I want to double click here, and that will give me my layer style option. We talked about layer styles before. This might just be a review, but I can go down to the one that's called stroke. I can click that one. And then when I click on that layer, you can see the other options. You can see automatically it put a little red outline around it. Why red? The red is the default. I can go over here and change that by double clicking on that little square and just adjusting it down to what I want. Sorry, my computer's going a little slow today. Yeah. Just bear with me. I'm going to hit OK. Technology is really great when it works. When it doesn't work, it's a pain. But realize that I have the same problems that you have out there. So I'll double click, and I'll try to click on black this time. Try to hit OK. And let's see if that works. And then I'll just hit OK here. Sorry, I got a lot of programs open and it seems to be lagging right now, so just bear with me. If for whatever reason this isn't working, I'll just restart it. So I've got my word bubble. I've created it already. And if I want to move it now, I can grab my move tool and I can place it in different areas because, again, it is on its own layer. Now I can switch over to the text tool, the letter T type tool. It's all the way down. It's underneath your burn and dodge. It's above the pen tool. It's the letter T. And then that should pop up your tool options up here. Now, I like to put it on this center adjust over here. This is like if you want your margin on the right, on the left or the right. I like to put it in the middle one. This is the size of the font, and this is the font itself, and you can click on that and you can kind of get a little look of like what the font will look like. You can put whatever font you want. I like to make sure it's nice and readable. I know there is a comic style font in here, and I'm just going to see if that pops up. Yeah, the comic relief, and I'm going to click. When I click, you're going to see a new layer has been created. It's got that T for text. You can see how small it is. I'm just going to start typing. What I can do is I can go with my mouse, highlight that, and then just make it a little bit larger. Okay, so let's just see. I'll write a little message. I'll be like, I can grab my move tool and I can move that around. And let's just say I wrote this and I realized, you know what? I wrote it, but it doesn't really fit my bubble. Well, I can go to my bubble, click on that layer, and then another little trick is when you have the move tool, that first tool, you can go to transform controls. And this way you can actually go in and enlarge your bubble. And again, my apologies, this is running a little slow. And I'm blaming the Wi-Fi and the amount of programs I have. And there we go. All right. So now I can resize it. Make it a little bigger so it fits nice over here. And then when I have it where I want it, let me just hit return. And now I've got my first little thing. Once I have it set up the way I want it, I can turn off those transform controls. And I have my first word bubble. Now you can continue to make new word bubbles, but what I can do also is I can click on this layer, the word bubble layer itself, and because it's all by itself, I can duplicate it. And I'll do that by hitting the control key and then pressing the letter J. And you can see what happened. You don't see anything change here, but there's now a word bubble copy. If I take my move tool, you can see there's another one that I've already dragged out over there. Now, a little big for what I need it to be, so I can take this thing and once again hit the transform controls, and I can make it a little bit smaller. And move it around. You can even grab this side and drag it the other way and make the arrow go in a different direction. I've shown you different ways to do that in the past. I'm going to put it right over here, and I'll make it like my computer is talking. And since you see this transform box up here, I'm just going to hit enter. I'm going to get my type tool. I'm going to type a new little word layer, and you can see that just pops up a new layer. And you can replace it over there and set it up. And once you have it where you want, you can just simply click onto another tool, hit enter. I can get rid of my transform controls. So I've set in my first two bubbles. Up top over here, I've decided I want to have a little sort of like something that explains the scene. Back in the day in Marvel Comics, there were a lot of times where you'd be reading the comic and the comic would be like action and the hero and whatever, but it may not necessarily have a dialogue going. So what Stan Lee did, one of his innovative things, was to create this sort of narration bubble. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little box up here, and I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call that layer narration. And generally what he did was those were in yellow. So I'm going to grab my paint bucket. I've got my new layer, got my little bubble up there. I'm going to make a little yellow bubble, hit Control D to deselect. I'm going to double click on my layer style by clicking on the blank space on this layer. I'm going to go to the stroke option. It's already preset to the same sort of standards that I had on the other one. I'll hit OK. And then now I'll grab my type tool, and once again I will work on typing a little bit of the narration. See, that's a little big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my move tool and try to move it here, and then I can hit that transform select option. Gives me that boundary box, and then I'm just going to shrink this stuff down to fit the little box that I've created. Hit enter. I'll click off the transform controls. I've got my little narration. And I'm going to continue to create my little word bubbles. I'm going to go down over here. I'm going to find my word bubble copy. I'm going to hit Control and J again. Made another copy. I'm going to grab my move tool. Just move that one out. I'm going to click on the transform controls. Create another little bubble. Try to figure out where I should put this to make the story flow. I feel like I'll flip it this way. Put it down over here. Grab my text tool. My little dialogue. Go over here. I think I want to put another little narration bubble, so I'll go up to my narration bubble one. You can double check what you have on a layer by clicking on it. I'll duplicate that layer by hitting Control and J. You see it's created a copy. I'll grab my move tool. Move that little extra copy there. Try to shrink it down, which once again will cause some problems with memory issues. But I'm going to do it anyway. Place it, move it around. grab my move tool, try to move that text around. I've got that transform control thing selected, so I will resize my words to fit. Place it. And then I have a little bit of coloring left to do, but I think I'm pretty happy with what I got. Now you can always create new layers for all this stuff, but if you create one good one, you can always just duplicate it. And remember that you have the layer options to sort of add outlines and things like that. So all you really have to do with the word bubbles is really create one. And then by using the move tool with the transform controls selected on, you can always resize and place them later on. When you do all this, you realize you're going to get a lot of layers, which is okay. But I think if you don't label them, you can get very confused. The text layers are easy to recognize because they just have the letter T by them. And I do recommend duplicating layers for your word bubbles, because that way they automatically are on their own layer. And that way, if you want to move one around and not the rest of them, it won't be a problem. Again, the idea is to have this file with all the layers and be editable. You want to make sure that you save as a PSD. But when you are totally done with all this and you have it exactly the way you want it and it is finished, you can go to File, Export as a JPEG. And that will save it as a JPEG file, which is basically a photograph. And that photograph can be opened in any program. It can be opened on any device. It's easy to read, and it's easy to keep a final copy. The problem with the JPEG is you don't have all these layers. So if you want to come back and you decide you misspelled something and you want to fix it, or you want to move something, or you want to add something else, you won't have the luxury of having all this available to you. Well, that is my re-explanation of the word bubbles. Again, there's already a video up for word bubbles that was done from, I guess, a week or two ago when we were doing that on the other projects. But this is the way I would do it here. And again, make sure you save your work.